Alright, very warm welcome back everyone. Today we want to talk about chords, and we'll stick to diatonic chords within one octave, so basically the chords that you can build within one octave in a key. And I still want to mention the basic chord triads that you can build from one particular root note with 3 notes. So we also have chords that do not use 3 notes but less, and also more, but less notes I would not think of as chords, but they are just basic intervals. Yeah. So in this case, we want to start on our C again, and the basic procedure that we apply is we build stacks of thirds. So chords are basic stacks of thirds, and as you know, a third can either be a minor or a major third. So this gives us 4 different options if we stack 3 notes on top of each other. So you first have a minor minor stack, then you have a minor major, you have major minor or major major stack. So if we start with minor minor and major major, these are called diminished and augmented chords, right? So if we start from our C, the first thing we want to build is a minor third. So 1, 2, 3 half steps give you a minor third, 4 half steps give you a major third. So in this case, we want to have a minor third and then apply another minor third on top of that. So 1, 2, 3. This gives us the C diminished chord, and the notes for this chord are C, E flat, and G flat. And the reason why they are called E flat and G flat is basically that we have stacks of thirds. If I would call this a D sharp, the general interval that we would look at in the first place would be this second, right? So this is where the D sharp would then come from. But a second is not a third, of course, and therefore not applicable in our stacks of thirds. And this is why we have the E flat here and not the D sharp. The same holds for the G, because if we were to talk about the F, this would be an augmented fourth, of course, and this would be called F sharp, but F sharp would or the basic interval would be the fourth, and therefore this F sharp would not make up for a stack of thirds or an interval that can be reached by stacking thirds. So C diminished. Then I told you can make the interval minor major. So in this case we have the minor interval already, but now the only thing we have to do is change these 3 half steps, 1, 2, 3, to 4. And this gives us the C minor chord. Then we have a minor major interval. So in this case, we have a minor third here. So this would be the major third. And then you have 1, 2, 3 for a minor third on top. This would give you a major chord. So in this case, C major. And the last thing that we can do is stack different or stack 2 major thirds on top of each other, which would give us this chord, and this is called the C augmented chord. So enough of that. We want to take a look at the chords in one particular scale now. So in this case, again, the C major scale. And the only thing I have to do is build triads and just move my hand such that my finger comes or lands on the next white note right next to the root that we are talking about right now. So if I'm talking about the C here, C major chord here, I would move my hand and talk about this chord. Because remember, this is the C major scale, and we only want to use the notes that are present in this C major scale. So you have a major chord, then you have a minor chord. If you want to count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, gives you the minor chord. You have a minor chord again, so this would be E minor, this would be D minor, E minor. Then you have a major chord, so this would be F major. Another major chord, which would be G major, minor for A, and this here is a diminished chord. In this case, diminished triad, right? So you can also have diminished chords with more than 3 notes, but we'll talk about those in just a second. You can also apply the same scheme for minor chords, of course. The only thing that differs is that these chords are organized in a different way. So you have a minor triad first, and this does not really surprise you, because in a major scale you would have a major triad on the first step, and in minor scales you have a minor third on the a minor triad on the first step, right? So A minor, then you have your B diminished, C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, and then you have your A minor again. Now, these are not the only chords that you can build in the space within a one octave, but I also want to talk about the seventh extensions that you can build. There are also sixth extensions and also sus chords, but we'll talk about those somewhere different. In this case, minor or seventh chords, because the 7 is another stack of thirds or another third away from the fifth you are dealing with here, right? So the basic procedure is that you have a stack of 2 thirds on top of each other, which gives you the triad, but then you are basically free to use other notes, right? So the first chord that we would come up with is this one, because we are only using, again, notes from C major scale, and the only thing that we have to find out now is, what is this seventh extension? Is this a minor seventh or a major seventh? And of course the answer is this is a major seventh, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps from the G here, right? So C major seventh chord, then you have D minor 7, right? E minor 7, F major 7, count it if you want to, and this here, you might expect that this should be a G major 7th chord, but it isn't. This is a G7 chord, so a G dominant 7th chord, and we'll talk about the function of this later on, but this allows you basically to come back to the tonic quite easily. Then you have your A minor and B half diminished because we have a diminished triad with a major 7th on top. Okay, so fully diminished would be this one, where you only have minor triads, and this one would be half diminished. Okay, and again, you can do the same thing for your A minor scale. In this case, you have the A minor 7th chord, then you have B half diminished. You can also call this minor 7th flattened 5th, because this would be the B minor 7th chord, and then you have the 5th here, which you are going to lower. That's the reason for that. But I would not call this minor 7th flattened 5th, because jazz musicians will hate you for that, and I like half diminished much better. So I'm going to call this B half diminished. Then you have your C major 7th, D minor 7th, E minor 7th, F major 7th, and then you have your G dominant 7th again, so flat out G7, and then you have your A minor 7th again. So the thing that we have to understand now is the following. I talked about major and parallel minor scales, but the minor scale we are always talking about in this situation is the natural minor scale. There also exist harmonic and melodic minor scales, and in this case, the reason I'm talking about this is in the Western music, you often find not the E minor 7th chord in the sense of the minor scale, but you find an E dominant 7th chord. And the reason for that is that we use the A harmonic minor scale in Western music. So this is what the harmonic minor scale would look like based on A. And the only thing that you have to do in order to reach this scale is raise your 7th step in both directions. So if you're going up and if you're going down. And this here then introduces you to the E dominant chord or E major chord, and also to the E dominant 7th chord, right? And not to the E minor chord. And the reason for that is what we are going to talk about in another video, namely how you can translate from your dominant chord back to your tonic quite easily.